What's going on, everyone? The Game Messiah himself, the Archangel, here with a video that was a long time coming, a ranking video. I haven't done one of these in a very long time in this format. Doing one from Halo was like the only one I ever did, which is fitting since Halo is my favorite franchise of all time. But the Resident Evil franchise, though not number one, number two on my top 10 list of like best franchises or favorite franchises, it is one of my top 10 in general. So even though it's not one or two, it's in that top 10. So why the fuck not? You know, Resident Evil just came out. You know, let's go ahead and the Village. Hell, I'm even one of those people who that actually like enjoyed the first three movies, even though like after the first three they become straight up garbage. So before we get into this video, I'm only ranking the games between Resident Evil and Resident Evil Village, as in I'm only ranking the mainline games, the mainstream games, or just main series games, whichever one of those three you want to go with on what you want to call these. Leaving out the side games like Outbreak, Survivor, Umbrella Corps, etc, etc, etc. As always, this is just my opinion. You are allowed to rank these games however you see fit. This is not a video about, oh, these are for a fact the best Resident Evil games. So this is just my opinion. This is what I think are the best games in order, you know. So don't lose your shit because a game that you like isn't higher up on this list. Make your own list, make your own video. You know, you can do that. It's pretty easy. You know, it's okay for people to like things differently or not like something at all. You know, see my video on opinions, which will be on the screen. You know, look up left and right. I don't know where it's going to be. It's going to be somewhere. You can watch a video about opinions as well. There'll be a more recent videos on a similar topic of opinions in the end card screen. Spoiler alert: your favorite Resident Evil game likely won't be my favorite Resident Evil game. We're all different. Humans are not equal people in terms of how our brains work. Also, I'm going to include Resident Evil Remake with the original. So you're going to see me have Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 2 Original together, not separate. I know people are going to find it be a cop out, or you know, they're not equals, but to me, I love the remakes and the originals equally. So kind of together. That includes Resident Evil HD Remastered and, you know, just Resident Evil. Anyways, I've talked enough. Let's get into the reason you clicked this video. Here's my ranking of the main series in Resident Evil franchise. Resident Evil 6 coming on my list, you know, which, if you know, we're being honest, will be last on most people's lists, is this game. The plot is terrible. The plot twist is terrible. The gameplay isn't very good. It doesn't feel like a real Resident Evil game, and it's really just a Michael Bay-esque action game with Resident Evil characters. It comes off as Capcom thinking this is what fans wanted. If, you know, those movies I mentioned earlier, you know, the ones after 3, you know, Afterlife, Retribution, and the Final Chapter, were into a video game, that would be Resident Evil 6. It's those 3 movies I just named into a video game. It's like they made the movies got made, and Capcom just thought to themselves, this is what fans want. But I will say not all is terrible with RE6. Characters like Helena Harper and Jake Mueller aren't all that bad. Helena's decent. I wish they'd bring her back as a side character, you know, side supported character in the future. Jake is a bit boring, but he's not terrible. And I do like the idea of Wesker's having a son. I actually think it would be a cool idea if Capcom has a story where Wesker's only had a son to use his body, you know, if he were to die. Kind of similar to Orochimaru using the bodies of others to survive. Basically, Jake being a host body. That would be a great thing to freaking, like, it'd be a great story. Like, you know, you only exist, like they cross paths in the future game, and he's like, I only had you because you're supposed to be a host body for me in case I die, not because I actually wanted a fucking son. It'd be freaking great. It's also cool to have Sherry around again, and like most games, RE6 is fun with friends. Resident Evil 5 was the precursor to the all-out action-heavy style we got in RE6. Much like 6, the story wasn't any good. Quick time events up the ass. A terrible AI companion that is only any good if a friend's playing as him. But I do find Resident Evil 5 to be more enjoyable than 6. I don't dislike Sheva. It's not her, you know, her fault that her programming was bad. Chris is Chris. He's one of the best characters in the franchise. He's a meathead in most of the games, but Chris is still a good character. You can like him or you don't. I think he's a solid brute that will fit right in any of another one of my favorite game franchises, Gears of War. And say what you want about the game, it gave us a meme that exists to this day, where even the new game references Chris in his tree trunk arms punching a boulder. All right. I know some of you clicked off the video the second you saw this game come up in this spot. I don't think RE7 is a bad game. Hell, this list doesn't mean any game on here is a bad game. Just which I like in the order. This is a list of my favorite Resident Evil games in order in which they are. It doesn't mean this game sucks. You just see X number in front of it doesn't mean it's a bad game. Anyways, RE7 was a return to the horror roots of Resident Evil. After all the crazy action nonsense of RE5 and RE6, it also took us into first person. Usually the main series of games, we have fixed camera or third person. The game does a good job at doing what the previous two games did poorly. Be a Resident Evil game, meaning good puzzles, good horror, good atmosphere. Majority of the fundamental mechanics people would associate Resident Evil are all present in this game. So why is it so low on my list? Well, I'm praising it a lot, and you would just sit there and think yourself, this is a very low ranking for a game that you're giving all this praise to. The other games are just that much better. And while I don't really care about Ethan Winters' character, as well the boss encounters RE7 kind of suck, the ending doesn't even matter in this game because they kind of just retcon and just go with their own canonized ending for RE8. It just seems like an important game, in my opinion. RE0 puts us in control of the woman Albert Wesker's casually obsesses over, Rebecca. Rebecca is a really good character, and this is a solid game. I do think people tend to be split down the middle when it comes to Zero, but I like the idea of being on a train. It adds to the horror atmosphere. Trains with zombies is a very claustrophobic idea. I didn't really care much for Billy. I don't think anyone cared. He's kind of an idiot. Is the game design to idiots? Yes. Was the AI for Billy awful? Yes. But it had some good ideas as well, like allowing you to drop items on the floor and pick them up wherever you left them off. So like if your inventory is full and you don't have like anywhere to put anything that you're carrying, you just drop it and come back later and pick it back up. Cool idea. Aside of being a game I genuinely enjoyed, Zero is one of the last horror games made in that the pre-rendering backgrounds and face cameras were a thing. Something I miss with the newer franchise, the newer games in the franchise. Around that, Resident Evil 7 comes in at number 8 on my list. This is the most recent Resident Evil game I reviewed. As I say in that review, this is a solid game. Fun boss encounters with the session of Angie and Donna. To quote Maximilian Dude, it's a roller coaster. It's a theme park experience for Resident Evil entry. Less horror than Resident Evil 7, which is a bad thing. The atmosphere is lacking. It doesn't really feel like an RE game. With its lack of traditional RE mechanics, it's a bit too heavy. I don't know, too action heavy, and kind of feels like it doesn't know if it wants to be a horror game or action game. The game is also way too easy, which the developers themselves admitted to dumbing down the game to appeal to more people, and because they received feedback that RE7 was too hard. All in all, it's a fun game, and I enjoyed playing it. At the time of recording, I've beaten it twice, and I could go for a third. With Resident Evil Revelation, Capcom jumped into the pool of episodic video games taking place between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5. We played as my 1A favorite character, Jill Valentine. This game has the best of the original greats of Resident Evil, but much like Village, it lacks the horror atmosphere and just isn't scary. The skating was tedious, the combat boring at times, but was still an overall good experience that I enjoyed revisiting. If having RE7 so low on my list didn't make people dislike and leave this video, having 4 out of the top 5 would definitely do that. This game, for a large number of RE fans, is their favorite Resident Evil game. It's beloved and spoken very similar to how Star Wars fans talk about A New Hope. RE Village is viewed as trying to recapture what made RE4 as good as it was, which, yes, it is a good game. Again, its place on my list doesn't mean it's a bad game. It just means there's 5 games I like more. To start on the negative for me, I don't like Leon Kennedy. Sorry, not sorry. I don't like Leon. The mechanics are pretty man. Ashley's super annoying. The game is kind of clunky. However, it is immersive and engaging with a solid story. I really like Revelations 2. I've only played through it, once for some reason, but I really love this game. I usually replay Resident Evil games often, especially the ones with my 1A and 1B favorite characters, Claire and Jill. Yes, 1A and 1B, because I can't and won't choose between them for my favorite character in the franchise. Revelations 2 has a great story with solid gameplay, better in every way than the previous Revelation title. I felt like this was a return to the RE roots, much like the first Revelations. It had a lot of the good things, the best things from the better games that the franchise had, as well. I actually like the character Moira. Talia is also a solid character, and Barry's drive to protect Natalia made for a good storytelling. Really, there is very little to say wrong about this game other than wanting more out of it. I think all the important characters did great in Revelations 2. All right, so there's been rumors that the next remaster remake from Capcom is gonna be a Resident Evil 4, but Capcom, listen to me, please. Like, don't do remake of RE4 yet. Do a remake of this game because this game is one of my favorite Resident Evil games of all time. It's an amazing game, but it has one massive issue that makes it really hard to play nowadays, and it's the really bad controls. The controls for this next game is so bad, it's so outdated. It desperately needs a remake because it's such a good game from top to bottom, but the controls, oh Capcom, I fucking love this game. Sorry, I freaking love this game. Code Veronica is so good. Like, once more, put me in control of Claire Redfield, one of my favorite characters in all of video games. This is a must-own Resident Evil game. This game's only real flaw is its controls. The sound is amazing. The story is amazing. When I say controls, I just mean the movement. I like third-person and fixed camera in Resident Evil games. Those will never be issues for me. I prefer fixed camera. This game itself is a fucking masterpiece in survival horror. Code Veronica is amazing. And that just means the other games on this list are just that much more amazing when this game's at number 4. I love Code Veronica. You can never go wrong with the OG, the first love, the one that started it all. Resident Evil is excellence. The definition of survival horror should just be a picture of this game, putting you in the role of two great characters, Jill or Chris. I've told y'all, how much I love Jill. So yes, I usually play as her. And yes, it matters who you play as. Jill gets next inventory space. Jill can play the piano. Chris can't, so Rebecca does it for him. Jill gets a lockpick. She gets a bazooka. She gets a shotgun earlier. And it's just an overall better character than Chris. Not hate to Chris because he is a great character, one of my favorites in the franchise, and he does have his own benefits. I just think Jill, is just better for the experience. The visuals and atmosphere of this game are second to none. This is fixed camera at its finest. It's like you're playing a character in a movie with how the camera switches like a classic horror film. It adds to the immersion, it adds to the atmosphere, and it adds to just having all-out horror when you don't even know it's around that corner. You walk forward and you hear a sound, but you don't see anything. Just the way the camera moves just adds to how amazing, of an atmosphere this game has. And that's just one thing to talk about because of having a fixed camera, not the overall experience of the game, which is just phenomenal. Take everything I just said about Resident Evil HD Remaster and one up it. Resident Evil 2 is phenomenal, and its remake is one of the greatest remakes in gaming. Rare it is a game is remade and turns out as good or better than its original. RE2 remake is visually astonishing, visceral, immersive, heart thumping. I played RE2 remake 7 or 9 times, with only 2 of those being as Leon. Yes, I play favorites to just replay as Claire. Freaking what, maybe 5, 6 times. It's insane how many times I played this game. And it's usually just me playing as Claire. From the preset to the lab to every boss encounter, I enjoyed the hell out of this game, especially the fights against Birkin, which are way better than the encounters against Mr. X. Would have been nice to have the giant moth, but again, RE2 remake was still great with its encounters. No surprise to those who know me, my favorite Resident Evil game, the one I think is the best Resident Evil, out of all of them, is Resident Evil 3. Mostly the original, it is vastly better than the remake, but I do love the remake for what it is. A theme park ride with one of my 2 favorite characters, Jill Valentine, and not just my favorite RE villain, but one of my top 5 favorite villains in all of video games, Nemesis. All the best things Resident Evil as a franchise is the original of RE3. I can't stress enough how incredible the game is. As for RE3 remake, as I said, I love it. I know many don't. They hate that the game lacks so much content from original, basically only really including 2 of the main areas and not being as survival horror as the RE2 remake. I still love it. Maybe I'm biased because it's Jill and Nemesis, but frankly that's okay. It's a video about my favorite games. It's an opinion video. Everything about this is kind of biased. Every single detail about every single one of these games is subjective and will be different per each individual that plays it. I know people who favorite character is Leon. That's okay. Like people who favorite character is Ada. That is okay. People who prefer RE4, people who prefer RE7, all that is fine. This video exists just for me to have fun with and to talk about one of my favorite franchises in gaming. So I ask you, what is your favorite Resident Evil game? And why? Doesn't even have to be one of the main series games like this video is basically about. It could be one of those side games. What do you love about the franchise, and where do you want to see it go in the future? Leave comments like those leave thoughts like those in the comments below. With all of that said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. As always, be kind to one another, stay safe. Goodbye, good night. Now you're just being a dick. Hi, Nim. That was in your dick. My dude, are you okay? You look confused, I promise. Nim? Explosions on your arm, my dude missed. Where are you going? Nemesis, come back.
I'm gonna kill you.
Get back here and love me.
You're not allowed to freaking leave, bitch. We're fighting. This is a boss fight. You must stay here, fight me like a fucking beast. You are. Or not.